My name is Elena Rodriguez, and I've been developing cutting-edge AI systems for the past 8 years. I thought I understood corporate politics. I thought I knew how to navigate the sharks in suits who make decisions about innovation. I was wrong. It started on a Tuesday morning in March. I'd been working on something revolutionary, a neural network architecture that could adapt in real time to changing data patterns without requiring complete retraining. The implications were staggering. Manufacturing processes could optimize themselves. Medical diagnostics could evolve with new symptoms. Financial models could adjust to market volatility instantly. I'd spent 4 months perfecting the theoretical framework, another 3 months building the prototype. My team, just me and 2 junior developers, had created something that could change everything. The presentation deck was polished. The demo was flawless. The ROI projections were conservative but still showed massive potential. I walked into that conference room with the confidence of someone who'd solved an impossible problem. The boardroom smelled like leather and disappointment. Around the mahogany table sat the usual suspects: Thomas Brennan, our CTO, with his perpetual scowl and expensive watch. Janet Kim from operations, always pragmatic to a fault. And Harrison Webb, VP of Innovation, who'd never innovated anything more complex than his expense reports. "Elena," Thomas said without looking up from his laptop, "walk us through this adaptive learning system." I launched into my presentation, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through my veins. "What you're seeing here is a neural network that doesn't just learn, it evolves. Traditional systems require complete retraining when faced with new data patterns. This system adapts in real time." I clicked through slides showing manufacturing efficiency improvements of 340%, medical diagnostic accuracy increases of 78%, and financial prediction models that could adjust to market volatility within microseconds instead of hours. "The beauty of this architecture," I continued, my fingers dancing across the keyboard, "is its recursive self-improvement. Watch this." The prototype hummed quietly on my laptop, processing sample data I'd fed it moments before. Numbers cascaded across the screen as the system identified patterns, adjusted its neural pathways, and optimized its performance, all in real time. In the past 60 seconds, it's improved its accuracy by 2.3% without any human intervention. Harrison finally looked up from his phone, a flicker of interest crossing his face. "What's the computational cost?" "That's the remarkable part," I said, pulling up the resource utilization charts. "Because it's continuously optimizing itself, it actually becomes more efficient over time. After the initial setup, operational costs decrease by roughly 15% monthly for the first year." Thomas leaned back in his chair, that familiar look of dismissal already forming. I could see it in his eyes, the same expression he'd worn when I'd proposed the automated testing framework that IBM later patented, or when I'd suggested the blockchain integration that Amazon now uses. "Too complex for real-world use," he shrugged, as if my 7 months of 18-hour days were nothing more than an interesting academic exercise. "Our clients want reliable, predictable systems. This is just too experimental." The silence stretched like a taut wire. Janet nodded along with Thomas, her lips pressed into that thin line she wore whenever she disagreed but wouldn't speak up. Harrison was already checking his phone again, probably scheduling his next golf game. "But sir," I started, my voice catching slightly, "the potential applications are enormous. Imagine our manufacturing clients being able to optimize their production lines without shutting down. Think about the healthcare systems that could diagnose rare diseases by learning from global patient databases in real time." "Are theoretical," Thomas cut me off, his voice sharp with finality. "We're not a research lab, Elena. We're a business. This would require too much R&D investment, too much risk. Our shareholders want quarterly results, not science fiction." I felt my chest tighten. "Sir, with respect, every major innovation seems like science fiction until it's not. The internet was science fiction. Machine learning was science fiction. Now they're the backbone of modern business." Thomas's expression darkened. "Elena, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but we have real projects with real deadlines. The Henderson account needs their logistics system upgraded by next month. The Morrison Group is waiting for their customer analytics platform. We can't afford to chase theoretical possibilities when we have concrete obligations." I felt something crack inside my chest. Not my heart, that was still beating. My faith in the system, maybe. My belief that good ideas would always find their way. I nodded once. Just once. Understood. I walked away from that meeting with my laptop under my arm and my dignity intact, but my mind was racing. The fluorescent lights in the hallway seemed harsher than usual, casting everything in a cold, clinical glow. I could hear Thomas's voice echoing behind me as he moved on to the next agenda item, probably discussing quarterly sales projections or the office holiday party. In that moment, I made a decision that would define the next chapter of my career. I didn't go back to my office immediately. Instead, I took the elevator to the parking garage and sat in my car for 20 minutes, staring at the concrete wall in front of me. The silence was deafening after the corporate buzz of the conference room. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts, my thumb hovering over the names of former colleagues who'd left Bigside Co. for greener pastures. My phone buzzed. A text from my teammate Jake. How'd it go? I stared at the message for a long moment before typing back, killed in the first round. Seriously? That system was incredible. What was their reasoning? Too complex for real-world use, I typed, the words feeling bitter even in text form. Jesus. Want to grab coffee? I'm buying. I met Jake at the Starbucks 2 blocks from our office. He was already there, nervously stirring his latte with the same intensity he brought to debugging code. Jake had been with me through every late night, every breakthrough, every moment of doubt during the development process. I can't believe they just dismissed it like that, he said, his voice tight with frustration. Do you know how many times I've seen Thomas approve projects with half the potential and twice the risk? I sipped my coffee, letting the warmth ground me. Remember the automated customer service chatbot he greenlit last year? The one that cost us the Patterson account because it couldn't handle basic inquiries? Or the blockchain payment system that was supposed to revolutionize our financial processes but couldn't handle more than 50 transactions per second, Jake added. But your adaptive AI system? Too risky. That conversation planted the seed of what would become my secret project. For the next 2 months, I played the part of the dutiful employee. I worked on the Henderson logistics system, optimizing algorithms that felt pedestrian compared to what I'd built in my spare time. I attended meetings about the Morrison Group's customer analytics platform, nodding along as we discussed features that my adaptive system could have implemented autonomously. But every evening, after the office emptied and the janitors began their rounds, I stayed late. Officially, I was catching up on documentation. Unofficially, I was perfecting my vision. The Bigside Co. building after hours has a different energy. The aggressive productivity of the day gives way to something more contemplative. I'd commandeer Conference Room C, the one with the best Wi-Fi and the comfortable chairs, and spread my work across the table like a general planning a campaign. My adaptive system wasn't just theoretical anymore. I'd built modules for 3 different industries, each one more sophisticated than the last. The manufacturing optimization module could predict equipment failures 18 hours before they occurred. The medical diagnostic component could identify patterns in patient data that human doctors missed 67% of the time. The financial modeling system could adjust to market volatility faster than any algorithm currently in production. I was building the future while my company clung to the past. Jake would sometimes join me during these late-night sessions, bringing coffee and moral support. We'd work in comfortable silence, the clicking of keyboards and the hum of servers creating a soundtrack to innovation. You know, Jake said one evening in May, there's something beautiful about building something just because you believe in it. Not because there's a deadline or a client requirement, but because you know it's right. I looked up from my screen, where lines of code were creating something that could genuinely change the world. My grandmother used to say that the best ideas are like seeds. They'll grow wherever you plant them, even if the first garden rejects them. Your grandmother was a smart woman. She was. She also told me that people who can't see the future are doomed to repeat the past. It was during one of these late-night sessions that I made a discovery that would prove prophetic. I was testing the system's ability to predict market trends when I noticed something unusual. The algorithm had identified a pattern in AI startup funding that suggested a major announcement was imminent. According to my system, a company working on adaptive neural networks was about to secure significant venture capital funding. The timeline suggested it would happen within the next 6 weeks. I should have seen it coming. 2 months later, I was deep in debugging a mundane customer portal when my office door exploded open. Thomas stormed in, his face red with a mixture of anger and panic. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, and his expensive suit looked wrinkled, as if he'd been running his hands through the fabric. Why is their prototype exactly like yours? He yelled, slamming a printout on my desk so hard that my coffee mug jumped. I looked down at the paper. It was a tech article from Innovate Daily. Startup Nexus Labs secures $50 million Series A with revolutionary adaptive AI system. The accompanying photo showed a sleek interface that looked suspiciously familiar, not identical, but similar enough to make my stomach drop. I don't understand, I said, though I was starting to. Thomas jabbed at the article with his finger, leaving a small crease in the paper. This is exactly what you proposed 2 months ago. Down to the real-time adaptation algorithms. How did they get your research? I stood up slowly, my mind racing through possibilities. Corporate espionage? Parallel development? Or something more mundane, and more damning for Thomas's judgment. They didn't get my research, Thomas. They developed something similar. It happens in tech. Good ideas have a way of surfacing simultaneously. Similar? His voice cracked like a teenager's. Elena, I've been getting calls all morning. Our biggest clients are asking why we don't have technology like this. The board is asking why we missed this opportunity. The stock price dropped 3% before lunch, and it's only Tuesday. The irony was almost too perfect to be real. I picked up the article and read it carefully. The CEO of Nexus Labs was Dr. Amanda Foster, a Stanford PhD who'd previously worked at Google's DeepMind division. The CTO was Michael Torres, a former Apple engineer with a background in neural network architecture. But the technical description, it was eerily similar to my work. Thomas, I said quietly, you told me this was too complex for real-world use. That's not, he stopped, his face cycling through emotions like a slot machine. Anger, frustration, fear, and finally, something that might have been regret. That's not the point. The point is that our competition just landed a massive funding round with technology we could have had first. I sat back down, a strange calm settling over me like a blanket. Actually, that is exactly the point. The next hour was a masterclass in corporate desperation. Thomas paced around my office like a caged animal, his expensive shoes wearing a path in the carpet. He wanted to know if I'd leaked the research. He wanted to know if I had connections at Nexus Labs. He wanted to know how we could develop something similar, and how quickly. Elena, I need you to recreate this. Everything you had in that presentation. We need to get ahead of this curve before our competitors eat our lunch. I still have everything, I said, trying to keep the satisfaction out of my voice. I kept developing it on my own time. His eyes lit up like a kid on Christmas morning. Perfect. How soon can you have a working prototype? I already have one. I've had one for 2 months. The silence that followed was deafening. Thomas stared at me with the expression of a man who'd just realized he'd thrown away a winning lottery ticket. His mouth opened and closed several times before he managed to speak. You kept working on it? I believed in it, I said simply. Just because you didn't see the value doesn't mean the value wasn't there. What Thomas didn't know, what I was only beginning to understand, was that good ideas have a way of surfacing independently. While he was dismissing my work as too complex, somewhere across the country, another team was solving the same problems I'd already solved. The difference was that they had leadership who recognized opportunity when it knocked. The next few weeks were a blur of meetings, apologies, and frantic development timelines. Thomas wanted to fast-track my system into production, but the corporate machinery that had been too slow to evaluate my idea was also too slow to implement it quickly. I found myself in meeting after meeting, explaining the same concepts to different groups of executives who were now suddenly very interested in adaptive AI systems. The irony wasn't lost on me, I was having to sell my own idea to the same people who'd already rejected it once. Elena, said Robert Chen, the VP of Engineering, during one particularly frustrating session, can you walk us through the scalability concerns one more time? I took a deep breath, reminding myself that patience was a virtue. The system is designed to scale horizontally. Each node can handle approximately 10,000 concurrent processes, and new nodes can be added dynamically based on demand. The architecture is completely modular. And the security implications? Asked Lisa Patterson from IT Security. End-to-end encryption, zero-trust architecture, and the neural network itself is sandboxed from core system functions. Even if compromised, it can't access sensitive data directly. Harrison Webb, who'd been checking his phone during my original presentation, was now taking detailed notes. What about integration with our existing systems? I've already built API bridges for our top 5 client platforms. The integration process is designed to be seamless, minimal downtime, automatic data migration, and full backward compatibility. I was answering questions I'd already addressed in my original proposal. The board meeting was scheduled for the following Thursday. Thomas wanted me to present the system to the executive team, including CEO Jennifer Walsh, who rarely involved herself in technical decisions. I spent the weekend refining my presentation, adding financial projections and competitive analysis that I probably should have included the first time. Monday morning brought unexpected news. Jake burst into my office with a coffee and a grin. "Have you seen the latest news about Nexus Labs?" "What now?" "They just announced partnerships with 3 major healthcare networks and 2 Fortune 500 manufacturing companies. Their adaptive AI system is being called a game-changer in the industry press." I felt a familiar twist in my stomach. That could have been us. Could have been? "Elena, that's going to be us. Your system is better than theirs." "How can you be so sure?" Jake pulled up a technical analysis on his laptop. "I've been studying their public documentation. Their system requires manual intervention for major adaptations. Yours is fully autonomous. They're using traditional neural networks with adaptive layers. You've built something that rewrites its own architecture. It's not even close." That's when I realized I had a choice to make. I could continue to be bitter about the initial rejection, or I could use this opportunity to prove that good ideas don't just deserve recognition, they demand it. I chose to channel my frustration into determination. The board presentation was scheduled for 2 p.m. in the main conference room. I arrived early, setting up my laptop and testing the connection. The room slowly filled with executives I'd only seen in company newsletters and annual reports. Jennifer Walsh was smaller than I'd expected, but her presence filled the room. She had the kind of focused intensity that made you understand how someone could build a company from the ground up. "Elena," she said, settling into her chair at the head of the table, "Thomas tells me you've developed something that could change our competitive position significantly." "Yes, ma'am. I believe I have." For the next 45 minutes, I gave the presentation of my career. I demonstrated the system's capabilities, explained its advantages over existing solutions, and showed financial projections that were conservative but still impressive. The room was silent except for the hum of my laptop and the occasional scratch of pens on notepads. When I finished, Jennifer leaned back in her chair. "This is impressive work, Elena." "Very impressive. I have one question: why wasn't this brought to my attention sooner?" The room got very quiet. Thomas cleared his throat. "Jennifer, Elena presented this to the leadership team 2 months ago. We felt it was too experimental for our current client base." "Too experimental?" Jennifer's voice was dangerously calm. "We just watched our stock price drop because a competitor beat us to market with experimental technology that Elena had already developed. The initial assessment was that it required too much R&D investment," Harrison offered weakly. Jennifer's gaze swept the room like a laser. "And what's our R&D budget for this quarter?" $8.5 million, Thomas said quietly. "And how much would this project have required?" I spoke up. The initial development was already complete. Implementation would have required approximately $2 million for testing and deployment. You could have heard a pin drop. Jennifer stood up slowly. "Let me understand this. Elena developed a revolutionary AI system that could have given us a significant competitive advantage. She presented it to leadership, who rejected it as too experimental. Meanwhile, our competition developed something similar and secured $50 million in funding. And we're now scrambling to catch up with technology we already had?" No one answered. What was there to say? "Elena," Jennifer said, turning to me, "I'm promoting you to Senior Director of Advanced Systems. You'll report directly to me, and you'll have a team of 12 developers and an annual budget of $15 million. Your first project is to get this system into production within 90 days. The room erupted in congratulations and backslapping, but I felt strangely detached from it all. I'd gotten what I wanted: recognition, resources, and the authority to implement my vision. But it had taken a competitor's success to make it happen. Success, I was learning, sometimes tastes bittersweet. After the meeting, Thomas approached me in the hallway. "Elena, I want you to know that I'm genuinely sorry about my initial reaction. Your work is exceptional, and I should have recognized that immediately." I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw something I hadn't expected. genuine remorse. Thomas, I appreciate that. But I hope you understand that this isn't just about my project. It's about how we evaluate innovation in general. How many other good ideas have been dismissed because they seem too complex or too risky? He nodded slowly. You're right. I'm going to make some changes to our proposal review process. No more snap judgments. Every technical proposal will get proper evaluation from multiple perspectives. That's a good start, I said. But the real change needs to come from the top down. Innovation requires risk tolerance, and risk tolerance requires leadership. The board wanted to understand how we'd missed such an obvious opportunity. Janet from operations suddenly found my work fascinating and ahead of its time. But here's what I learned: respect earned through panic isn't really respect at all. The months that followed were a whirlwind of activity. My new team was handpicked from the best developers across different departments. We worked with the focused intensity of a startup, but with the resources of an established corporation. The adaptive AI system evolved from a promising prototype into a market-ready platform. But the real transformation wasn't in the code, it was in the culture. Jennifer Walsh made it clear that innovation was now a top priority. She instituted monthly innovation showcases where any employee could present new ideas. The evaluation process became more rigorous, with technical experts from multiple departments reviewing each proposal. Elena, Jennifer said during one of our weekly meetings, I want you to know that your situation has been a wake-up call for this entire organization. We almost lost a competitive advantage because we were too conservative in our thinking. I nodded, grateful for the acknowledgement. The goal isn't to avoid all risks, but to take calculated risks on the right opportunities. Exactly. And I want you to help me identify other potential innovations that might have been overlooked. Can you review the proposal archive from the past 2 years? That's when I discovered just how systemic the problem had been. Buried in the archives were dozens of proposals that had been rejected for being too experimental or too complex. A blockchain-based supply chain tracking system that would have revolutionized inventory management. A predictive analytics platform for customer behavior that could have increased sales by 40%. A cloud-based collaboration tool that would have eliminated the need for expensive third-party software. Each rejection had been justified with the same corporate speak: not aligned with current priorities, insufficient market validation, too high implementation risk. But looking at them now, with the benefit of hindsight and market developments, they represented millions in lost revenue and competitive advantage. I compiled a report for Jennifer, highlighting the most promising rejected proposals and their potential value. The document was 27 pages long and painted a sobering picture of innovation stifled by bureaucratic conservatism. This is damning, Jennifer said after reading through my analysis. We've been our own worst enemy. It's not uncommon, I replied. Most large corporations struggle with this balance. The question is what we do about it moving forward. The answer came in the form of the Innovation Incubator. Jennifer announced the new program at the next all-hands meeting. Any employee could submit ideas for rapid prototyping and testing. Approved projects would receive funding, dedicated time, and access to cross-functional teams. Most importantly, failure would be treated as learning rather than punishment. We're not just building products, Jennifer told the assembled crowd. We're building a culture that values creative thinking and calculated risk-taking. Elena Rodriguez's adaptive AI system is just the beginning. The response was overwhelming. Within the first month, we received over 200 proposals. The quality ranged from brilliant to bizarre, but the enthusiasm was infectious. Engineers who'd been quietly nursing ideas for years suddenly had a platform to explore them. I found myself in the unique position of being both innovator and innovation evaluator. It was a responsibility I took seriously, remembering my own experience with dismissive leadership. Every proposal got a fair hearing. Jake was promoted to technical lead for the incubator program. During one of our evaluation sessions, he pulled up a proposal from Amy Chen, a junior developer in the QA department. This is interesting, he said, sharing his screen. She's proposing a self-healing code system that could automatically identify and fix bugs in real time. I reviewed the proposal thoroughly, strong technicals, big potential. But I anticipated objections: too risky, too complex. What's your gut say? I asked Jake. 6 months ago, I'd have said it's too ambitious. Today? It's exactly what we need. That's when I knew the culture had shifted. 6 months later, our adaptive AI system launched to critical acclaim, capturing market share from Nexus Labs and cementing Bigside Co's reputation for innovation. Thomas took credit publicly, but those who mattered knew better. At the packed launch, I stood backstage, stunned by how far we'd come. Nervous? Jennifer asked. Excited, I said. You've transformed this company, she replied. The demo impressed, real-time AI adaptation across industries. In the Q&A, I corrected Thomas's vague answer, stating the prototype was done 7 months prior, and delays came from outdated internal processes. The press appreciated the honesty. Financial gains followed, but the real win was realizing my work had value, regardless of recognition. A year later, innovation flourished. I still track everything, not from fear, but self-respect. To those dismissed, keep building. Keep records. And remember, success is revenge, but growth is power.